Hello, my name is Andrew O. Jackson. I am creating this video series titled The Personal Power of Chi and Evolution in Sports Psychology with the intent that athletes of all levels and abilities, and no matter what their sport, can understand, access, and actualize their evolutionary self of strength, speed, stamina, agility, reflexes, cunning, and success. Chapter 1, 3,000 Years of Erroneous Emotional-Driven Behavior Dynamics, is about how our early childhood and primary school language and literary educators are teaching an erroneous psychology of emotional-driven behavior that later becomes an unquestioned linguistic doctrine, sabotaging academic awareness and understandings in literature, sociology, religion, psychology, psychiatry, medicine, philosophy, law, and criminal justice. For the athlete, this erroneous and disempowering linguistics of emotional-driven behavior must be restructured into an empowering, good-feeling, and natural cognitive emotional reprocessing linguistics of strength, speed, stamina, agility, cunning, and success. Before we begin, I want to reiterate that the terms cognitive and cognition refer to activities and processes of awareness and knowing of the mind, such as perceiving, conceiving, remembering, reasoning, judging, imagining, and problem solving, where understanding and comprehension of thoughts, ideas, and beliefs can project future consequences and events. I also want to state that I group emotions, moods, attitudes, and feelings together because they either feel good as an evolved indicator of a healthy biochemical and neurological physiology, or feel bad as an evolved indicator of an unhealthy biochemical and neurological physiology. Does a coach or athlete have the cognitive emotional awareness to understand that bad feeling emotions, moods, attitudes, and feelings are evolutionary indicators of a disempowering, disabling, and ineffective neurological and biochemical physiology? And then does the coach or athlete have the capacity to reprocess their disempowering, emotionally negative cognitions, especially during the heat of competition on the field of play, into empowering, emotionally positive cognitions that correlate with a healthy biochemical and neurological physiology that precipitates the strength, speed, stamina, agility, reflexes, cunning, and success, and the actualization of a superior world-class performance? We all have been taught what a mountain is, and because of this, we have a common belief that the mountain exists independently of our observation of it. But the mountain exists as it does because we have been taught to believe it so. The mountain range I am going to talk about is a 3,000-year-old erroneous paradigm of emotionally driven behavior. When a person talks about emotions, because of our language and literary background, or maybe for today's generation, I should say video background, we as a collective consciousness have a neurolinguistic programming of emotional-driven behavior. That is, emotions drive behavior. Therefore, aberrant and dangerous emotions are responsible for destructive behavior and acts and must be controlled, managed, and regulated, even with the use of pharmaceuticals. In this presentation, I will lay out this accepted misunderstanding of emotions and how emotions are typically part of decision-making, and then challenge the viability of that mountain. Understanding the power of emotions and what that power is vital for every coach and athlete to successfully compete, no matter what their sport and what position is in that sport. Not until emotions are understood will their true power be revealed. Life experience gives us a visceral understanding to our awareness. Emotions bring another dimension to our cognitive experience. A person can logically say that the wind is blowing 20 to 25 knots, but what does that mean emotionally? What emotions does this scene conjure up? For those who have never lived on the water, I will highlight some telltale markers. Notice the dark water and the white caps forming. Look at the Canadian flag on the blue boat. Seems to be a party going on that boat. Is there anything to worry about? Notice the strain on the anchor lines in front of each boat going into the water. Is our anchor set well enough that we will not drag anchor and end up on the rocks? Or in this case, there is another boat behind us that we would hit. Here I am talking about how our emotional reaction to cognitive activities of the mind influence behavior. Emotionally driven behavior and emotional control are ideas created with the dawn of civilization. This is the first line of the Iliad, written by Homer around 800 to 700 BCE. Homer's Iliad is believed to be inscribed from the folklore of that era. Quote, Goddess, sing me the anger of Achilles, Peleus' son, that fatal anger that brought countless sorrows on the Greeks and sent many valiant souls of warriors down to Hades, leaving their bodies as spoils for dogs and carrion birds. For thus was the will of Zeus brought to fulfillment. Achilles' anger brought countless sorrows on the Greeks. Achilles' anger sent many valiant souls to Hades. Achilles' anger drove him. We have had 3,000 years of emotionally driven behavior, and notice that this emotionally driven behavior is the will of the gods. Our early literary and linguistic education with such books as Mark Twain's The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, Dickens's Great Expectations, Poe's The Raven, and Austen's Pride and Prejudice impacts our current understandings and scientific research about emotionally driven behavior. As a student learns to read and understand what is written in these books, they must embrace the linguistics of emotions driving behavior and the need for emotional control. As a student advances in their collegiate career and encounters more involved emotional linguistics, say in the works of Shakespeare, or studies in sociology, psychology, religion, and medicine, the language of emotional-driven behavior, emotional disorders, and the need for emotional control, management, and regulation becomes automatic, a habit, an unchallenged foundation of our culture and society. Here are two diagrams typically used to understand emotions and cognitive behavior therapy. The ABC diagram and cognitive triangle. Both illustrate a cause and effect relationship between thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. Cognitive behavior therapy is one of the most researched and studied therapies and has proven over and over to be effective in treating emotional disorders like depression. The outside ABC circular diagram is a typical schematic of cognitive behavior therapy's cause and effect process flow, where starting at the left, an external or internal activating event is processed through a person's rational and irrational thoughts and beliefs, which then produce emotional reactions with emotional-driven behavior consequences. To feel better and to change their emotional-driven behavior, a person needs to reevaluate their beliefs. The cognitive triangle in the middle is illustrating a different cause and effect flow process between thoughts, emotions, and behaviors, and how they all influence each other, and how logic and reason is used to evaluate irrational thoughts and beliefs to control emotions that drive behavior. But something very fundamental and significant is left out of these process flow charts and psychology's linguistic paradigm of emotional control, management, and regulation. What about changes in physiology? I want to put Homer's and modern psychology's linguistics of emotionally driven behavior and control into a more formal definition. The current linguistics of emotions in literature, psychology, sociology, religion, philosophy, medicine, law, and education understands emotions as potentially aberrant, dangerous, and untrustworthy because emotion, moods, attitudes, and feelings can drive destructive behavior. And therefore, these emotions, moods, attitudes, and feelings must be controlled, managed, and regulated, even with the use of pharmaceuticals. Have you heard of these phrases? Anger management, driven by anger, driven by love. You need to control your emotions, crimes of passion, acts of revenge. How about emotional disorders such as depression, mania, bipolar disorder? Our movies, music, literature, religion, sociology, philosophy, psychology, psychiatry, medicine, law, and education are systematically intertwined with the linguistics of emotional driven behavior, emotional disorder, and emotional dysfunction. We have a worldview of emotional reactions and emotional driven behavior where 1. Aberrant and dangerous emotions drive destructive behavior. 2. Emotions must be controlled through reason and the cognitive mind. 3. And if that is not effective, we have pharmaceutical emotional control. We have had 3,000 years of emotionally driven behavior and emotional control, at least since Homer's Iliad and Brad Pitt's Troy. But do emotions really drive behavior? Maybe the emotional behavior relationship is not one of cause and effect, but a correlation. Maybe emotions are just a reflection of behavior, like wind vane reflects the direction of the wind. And if emotions do not drive behavior, can emotions be destructive and in need of controlling? Let us look at emotions from another perspective. Emotions, moods, attitudes, and feelings are the knowing and awareness of feeling good and feeling bad perceptions of neurological, biochemical, and physiological changes and states of being within the brain and body. Jesse J. Pridz gives a well-thought-out discussion of this aspect of emotions in his book, Gut Reactions, a Perceptual Theory of Emotions. He is a distinguished professor of philosophy at the Graduate Center of the City University of New York. The current psychology of emotions is that 1. Emotions drive behavior, and therefore emotions must be controlled, regulated, and managed, even with the use of pharmaceuticals, because dangerous emotions drive destructive behavior. 2. The cause and effect sequence is cognition changes emotions, which drive behavior. And therefore, 3, in cognitive behavior therapies, CBT, a person changes their thoughts to change how they feel and to control their emotionally driven destructive behavior. Our literary linguistics of emotional driven behavior is a conceptual shortcut that 1, does not acknowledge the role of changes in physiology of the brain and body, and 2, does not understand our brain and body as an electrobiochemical unit, where a highly orchestrated set of electrobiochemical charges is set out from the brain through our nervous system that is causal to our physical motion and behavioral acts. Or 3, stated more succinctly, emotional driven behavior means that emotions change the physiology in the brain and body that drives behavior. If 1, we were to integrate the psychology of emotional driven behavior and control with the philosophy of emotions as a perception of biochemical, neurological, and physiological changes and states in the brain and body, then 2, the new cause and effect sequence in emotional driven behavior is A, cognition changes the emotional state of being, which B, precipitates changes in physiology, which C, drives behavior, and D, are perceived as emotions. Emotions are now both the cause of changes in physiology and the effect of changes in physiology. Is 3,000 years of emotionally driven behavior logical? Can emotions be both the cause and effect of the same event? There is a logical solution to this illogical sequence. Instead of emotions precipitating the changes in physiology that drives behavior, cognition precipitates the changes in physiology that drives behavior and are perceived as emotions. Emotions do not drive behavior, cognition does. Emotions do not have a causal relationship to behavior, but a correlation relationship. Emotions reflect and give meaning and another dimension to the cognitive behaviors and activities going on within the mind that do drive behavior. Negative emotions are like the check engine light on the dashboard of a car, indicating to the driver that there's a problem within the engine. What happens when we integrate changes in physiology to psychology's ABC and cognitive triangle flowcharts? Starting at 1, an object of attention stimulates 2, cognitive activities, which 3, precipitate physiological changes that 4, drive behavior, and 5, are perceived as emotions. Emotions do not drive behavior. Cognition does, because cognition, not emotion, precipitates the changes in states of neurology, biochemistry, and physiology that drives behavior and is perceived as emotions. Emotions are not causal, but an effect. Emotions are not aberrant and dangerous because they do not drive behavior. And more importantly, emotions are not in need of regulation, control, and management, especially with pharmaceuticals. This would be equivalent to forcibly move a wind vane by hand to change the direction of the wind. Without an accompanying text or explanation of cognitive emotional reprocessing behaviors, preschool and primary school language and literary educators are indoctrinating their students with an erroneous psychology linguistics of emotional-driven behavior and control and sabotaging their students' future. These same teachers can augment their students' emotional awareness and understanding with readily available, age-appropriate cognitive emotional reprocessing content. Karine Baruch-Fieldman and Rebecca Camizio have developed a wonderful textbook called, quote, The Resilience Workbook for Kids, 32 Skills to Build I Can Do It Muscles. I have written 2 books on this subject, Cognitive Emotional Health Education, a Primary and Secondary School Overview, and The Personal Power of Chi, an athlete's heritage of strength, speed, stamina, agility, reflexes, cunning, and success. My publications are freely available as downloadable PDFs from my websites, symbioticpsychology.com and emotional-evolution.com. Cognitive emotional reprocessing health education is a must in education, social service, mental health, and criminal justice reform. Why are gun manufacturers being held accountable for society's lack of cognitive emotional reprocessing education that is necessary for individual health, well-being, and successful and effective decision-making and their actualization? It is time we evolve out of our old world of literary and linguistic shortcut of emotional-driven behavior and control found in current literature, sociology, philosophy, religion, law, and criminal justice, psychology, psychiatry, medicine, and education. We are now in a new world where success in sports competition and in life demand an evolved cognitive emotional reprocessing dynamics where emotions are used to guide cognitive behavior to a better feeling, healthier, and more effective state of being. As in sailing and in life, the opportunity is there to enjoy. It is our responsibility to make it so. Success depends on it. Effective and successful decisions will not be actuated in a vortex of negativity. Enjoying life is necessary for physical health. Enjoying life is necessary for mental well-being. Enjoying life is necessary for effective and successful decision-making. Enjoying life is necessary for the actualization of that which is wanted, desired, and intended. If an athlete or coach wants, desires, and intends to succeed in sports competition and to have a world-class performance, they must enjoy themselves. For within their joy lies the empowered, good-feeling neurological and biochemical physiology of the brain and body that is necessary to support and maintain a world-class performance. Because joy has an evolved correlation with health, well-being, and success, we have evolved to be joyous beings. Ancient Greek philosophers and today's academic dissertations of emotional suffering, slavery, and vulnerability exist only when cognitively dwelling upon the lack or absence of that which is wanted, desired, or intended. When these emotionally negative cognitive activities are reprocessed, restructured, and redeveloped into emotionally positive cognitions, a being of emotional suffering, slavery, and vulnerability is transformed, transmuted, and renovated into a being of joy, freedom, and power, with the imaginative, artistic, and creative mind necessary to fashion and manifest their wanted, desired, and intended world, reality, truth, and favored fortune. When joy and good feelings permeate your life, practice, and competition, good things happen. I wish you all a successful and joyous life. It is all there for you to enjoy and to make whatever you desire, want, and intend. Namaste.